all said many of the things that I wished to say. Madam Sadia talked about a healthy lifestyle of sleep, rest, exercise, good food, and a disciplined life. I also had wanted to talk of that, but as she has done so, I will leave it at that. And I was very interested to hear the speeches of the children, of you children. You've touched on many important topics in health for all, preventative medicine, preventative measures such as a better, cleaner environment, healthy food, and so on. And both have mentioned, both Madam Sadia and one of the speakers mentioned FaceTime and how important it is to control one's desire to be online. You are very lucky in this generation. You have many resources. You can get information from all over the world at just tapping your fingers. But it also has great dangers. And always seek, please, what is good online, not what is bad, because there is a lot of bad stuff out there, as well as a lot of good stuff. Anyway, I set out last night to think, what was I going to talk about? And I decided to talk about the gentleman whom I considered very privileged to be asked to help. Hakim Saeed Saab was a very modest man. He lived a very simple life and he dressed very simply. He was a man of wealth and power, but he never, ever showed that. He was always a most courteous and compassionate man. He spoke to everyone, all people, in very calm, quiet tones, very authoritatively, but he treated all people the same. It didn't matter what their caste was, what their creed was, what their age was, what their gender was, what station of life they were in. He was always Hakim Saeed. He was never a different person for different levels of society or for different people. He was just himself. And that is a very great attribute, to always be yourself and no pretenses at all. He also, first and foremost, was a man of healing. And to him, that was his life's work. I first met him in the Sadr Dawakhana, a very humble surroundings, and there he was sitting on the chair, prescribing, diagnosing and prescribing medicines. That is how I first met him. And then I met him here, when there was just the Scholars' House and barren land around. And one of the great things about him was that he always brought people together. He never argued. He had very strong beliefs. He had very strong principles, but he never argued. He always listened, and he listened very carefully. And then he analyzed what he'd heard, and he reached his own conclusions and his own decisions. The one thing he was not, he was never divisive. He was always bringing people together, and that is so important. If you listen to the news channels, you have everyone arguing their case, shouting at each other, or shouting above each other, not listening. Although he was very deaf in one ear, he was a superb listener. He heard what you said. He heard all the undertones of what you said. And as I say, he reached his own conclusions. He was also a lifelong learner, and this is very important. Right until the end, he was learning, and he kept a very open mind, and he learned from many different sources. He always checked his facts. today we go online and somebody says something, everyone jumps on it, everyone spreads the news, and it may not be true at all. He checked everything. He learned from books, he learned from history, he learned from people, he learned from organizations, he learned from within Pakistan and from all over the world. And he did that all his life. So that is something we must learn from him. He also learned from himself. He was very, very good at looking at what he did, looking at what was good and what was not good. He was not afraid of making mistakes. He was not afraid of failures. He saw them as learning opportunities, and he would analyze and think about what he had done and what he should have done. And so he was a great self-teacher because he was not hesitant about admitting when he was wrong. He had a very passionate belief that education was the road to health, the health of individuals and the health of the nation. And so he was also a man of great vision, of great patience, and of action. I hope I remember aright, it was many, many years ago, he told me that when on Hajj, he was contemplating, meditating, and he had a vision, that God sent him a vision. And the vision was a place in the desert, a place in the desert which would become a place of enlightenment and wisdom, the Bait-ul-Hikmah. And he told me this story, and he said, it took me 30 years. He said, I looked everywhere in Pakistan, and I began to wonder, was I right or was I wrong? Was this a vision or was it not a vision? And then he came here to Gadap, and he saw in his mind this institution. You said about him hearing children playing. When he talked to me, he talked about light, enlightenment, that he saw light when he visited this place first. And so he set about, after these 30 years of patience, of hope, and sometimes doubt, he came and he made this place. I came when there was just the Scholars' House, nothing more but the Scholars' House, and a resident dog. I said he was a compassionate man. One day, after the meeting, he said, please come, I want to show you something. And he took me in the garden, and he showed me a dog with 5 puppies. I said, how did you come to have this dog? And he said, when I went for Juma Namaz, my chappals disappeared. And we looked for them and couldn't find them. And then we found a dog eating them. And that dog had puppies and was hungry. It was so hungry that it ate my chappals. So I brought it home with me. So there was the dog called Lucy, sitting in the garden with her puppies being cared for. So he was a very, very compassionate man. And he also loved nature, because I remember that after building the Scholars' House, the next thing was to plant a garden. And I remember there was a lot of the plants which I call plantain, from which isfagul is made. And that was very early on that he had those planted. So I wonder what we have to learn from this great man. Well, as I said, he was a man of learning, a man of compassion, a healer. He should be a role model for you. He was a role model for me. I learned much from him. And I think you can learn much from him. One of the things I learned was how important it was to pursue a career that I loved. That you can have a career which is all right, but brings a lot of money. But money without satisfaction is not the key to happiness and not the key to health. So you children, please choose, when you choose your career, choose something you really want to do, and do it well. Whatever Hakim Said did, he did it well. He did it to the best of his ability. So this is your job in life. Find a career you like and perform it well. Also, as I said, he kept an open mind. Don't shut your minds. Don't think, I am right and other people are wrong. Listen to other people also, and really listen. Because by discussion rather than argument, a discussion is where one person speaks and another listens. The other person speaks, the other person listens. Argument is when you both keep shouting at each other because you think you are right. He never did that. Never. I never saw that. So that is one more thing we can learn from him. And he always sought what was good in other people. He didn't say, Sindhis are this, or Mahajirs are that. He was a Mahajir himself. And Pathans are this, and these are that. He just loved all people and thought all were equal, equally worthy and equally deserving. So don't close your minds because people are different. Keep your minds open and learn from each other. He also didn't like to waste his time. I'm afraid we kept you waiting, but that was because we were looking at the schools. He was always on time, and time is a very precious commodity. So make good use of your time and have the courtesy to be on time for other people. Also, he always took responsibility for his own actions. I never heard him once blame anyone else. But I'm sad to say that each time I come back to Pakistan now, I hear more blaming. It's this one's fault, it's that one's fault, it's somebody else's fault. Don't blame anyone else. Look at what you are doing. Decide whether there's something you could do better, whether you can learn something. But don't blame others. Take responsibility for your own actions and make sure that your actions are what should be done. Always remember there are others. There are others who don't have what you have. You may have a lot, you may have a little, but there are others who have less. Whatever your work, whatever you do in the future, always remember that you, as a member of society, must contribute to this road to health, health through education. Whatever we do, whether we're a businessman, a shopkeeper, any job, we must remember that there are others that we can help. And we must find ways to help them with dignity, not with condensation, but with dignity, because that was the way in which Hakim Said helped others. He didn't make them feel small. He thought they themselves were important, and he listened to them. So that is really all I want to say, except that I'm so greatly honored to be here today to give testimony about Hakim Said and to see what has been achieved by him and by Sadia, Madam Sadia, and so many of you. And I thank you all of the staff who've been showing me around. I think Ziladar Khan, the driver, and Gullala, have I remembered? Gullala. Everyone is so proud to be part of this organization. And it's so lovely to be here because there is great pride in what you're doing. And you are, I think, a true learning institution. And the fact that it goes right from the early years right through to postgraduate is such a huge achievement that I am in awe of Hakim Said and of Madam Sadia. And thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. And thank you, students, for all your wisdom too.
I thank you from bottom of my heart for taking time from your busy schedule for gracing our seminar and invigorating all our spirits. Your presence and wise words helped us magnify our cause in the best possible way.